This is part 2 of the multiplier. You need to look at part 1 first, otherwise part 2 probably won't make too much sense. So we're just going to begin by recapping. So this is a formula for the multiplier. We also have used k equals 1 over marginal propensity to withdraw, because these three are your withdrawals from the circular flow. So that's your marginal propensity to save, marginal propensity to import, and marginal propensity of taxation. So it's the proportion of additional income. Remember, marginal is additional income. So if you get additional income, it's what proportion you save, spend on imports, and what proportion is taxed. So the multiplier is the number that we increase our injections by to find our final increase in national income. So government spending is one of the injections. Let's suppose government spending goes up by £100. The multiplier is 5. That means national income is going to go up by £500. Now, if any of these things increase, because they're on the bottom of the equation and you're dividing by 1, if any of those increase, then the value of the multiplier will fall. So what will happen is, instead of multiplying by 5, we might be multiplying by 3. And that means that you do your 100, that's your injection, you're now multiplying it by 3, not by 5, and now you're only going to get 300 increase in national income as a result of the injection. So that's going to have less impact. So let's look at each of those three things in turn in the formula to see what might cause them to change and therefore have a knock-on effect on the multiplier. So any of those increasing is going to lead to a fall in the multiplier, as we said before. So let's look at MPM. If MPM increases, that means consumers are spending a bigger proportion of their additional income on imports. What's going to cause them to do that? Well, if imports become relatively cheaper, so that could be imports becoming cheaper or UK goods becoming more expensive, that's going to persuade consumers to spend on the imports rather than the UK goods. So the marginal propensity to import will increase. An increase in the value of the pound will do exactly as this first point here, because an increase in the value of the pound will make UK goods more expensive, it will make foreign goods cheaper. So that will have the same effect. An improvement in the quality of imports, that means you might not necessarily have a change in the price, but the quality might have improved. So that means imports are going to be more desirable and therefore spend more on imports. Looking at taxation, that means a bigger proportion of income is taken in taxation. So maybe the government changes income tax rates, so they increase the percentage that you're paying, or the consumer might have moved up into a higher tax bracket. So the government might have moved the tax brackets down. So instead of saying once you've earned 50 grand, you're pay 40% tax, they might move that down to 45 grand and you're paying 40% tax. So both of those things mean that the consumer is being charged extra tax on additional income. And then finally, saving. So what could cause a consumer to save more? Well, it would be the same as what would cause them to spend less. So maybe increased interest rates, that encourages consumers to save more because you get a better return. Low consumer confidence, so consumers will be saving because they don't want to spend, they're worried they might lose their job, so they want to save just in case. Right, so if we look at injections now, as we said before, if we increase government spending, it's going to lead to an increase in national income. So let's put the figures on that we had before, and the multiplier is 5. That leads to an increase in national income of 500. Now, if injections increase, then what we're going to get is we might get 200, and then we'll get 1,000. The value of the multiplier stays the same, but the injections cause a bigger multiplier effect. So if we go from 100 to 200, instead of going 500, we're going to go to 1,000. So the value of the multiplier stays the same, but we're going to get a bigger increase in national income. So the higher the injections, the bigger will be the multiplier effect. Not the bigger will be the multiplier, but the bigger will be the multiplier effect. So we're going to get a bigger increase in national income.